Hi, welcome. All right, let's begin. Hi everyone, good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on coexisting with AI tools, experiences and reflections from SHAPE. So today we have a very exciting lineup of presentations from our own faculty. And before we begin, a few housekeeping items. This webinar is recorded, and the recording will be shared after the webinar at this URL. We'll also share the link with you afterwards. We will have Q&A segments during which you are encouraged to ask questions. You may use the raise hand function to do so. And at any time, if you would like to give your comments or questions, you may also use the chat function. So this is the first of our series of webinars. And today, as you can see, the focus is on SHAPE. So we have faculty from Humanities, Social Sciences, who will share their experiences and reflections with you on AI tools. Tomorrow, we have two webinars. We have one beginning at 1 o'clock, and that is going to be a little bit more technical. It will be on prompt engineering basics now and next at 1 o'clock. And at 2:30, we have a segment on GenAI and education, taking stock and planning ahead, where we will share with you some research that we have done, surveys that we've done with faculty. Some of you received this survey, some of you even filled this out. We'll share the results with you, as well as we will hear from students in a research that's an ongoing research that's been done. Also with that, you will hear from Sabrina, our SIAO from SAIO from SSS, and she will share on academic integrity issues. Now on Thursday, we have our last webinar, which will be experiences and reflections from the sciences, STEM. Okay, so I hope that you have signed up for the ones that you're interested in, and we'll see you after today in some of the other ones as well. Right, so for today, we have 4 presentations lined up for you. And so the time will be split between the 4 segments. Each segment will be about 20 minutes, which consists of about 15 minutes of presentation and 5 minutes of Q&A. Okay. If we don't have any questions at the moment, we'll start with our first presentation. So this is the first of 4 webinars in this series of webinars. You can see on the slides the titles for the different webinars that's happening this week. I hope that you have signed up for them, some of them or all of them if you're interested. The housekeeping, I have already said, this is recorded. We will share the recording with you afterwards and welcome you to participate in our Q&A. So the first speaker will be Assistant Professor Bernhard Schmidt from ADM. Okay. So prior to joining NTU, he was a screenwriter, director, and producer. Today, his presentation will be on art and artificial intelligence, fostering creative thinking with AI tools. All right, let's welcome Prof. Bernhard Schmidt.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me, perfect, good. Then let's go, just let me share my... all right, you can see my slides?
Yes.
All right, perfect, good. Yes, hello, thanks for having me this talk. As mentioned, my name is Bernhard Schmidt. I'm professor at ADM for stop motion and experimental animation. And like so many of us, I was thrown into the area of AI over the last 2-3 years. So I just wanted to share with you experiences that I collected over the last year with introducing AI into the curriculum, and how it can be used for teaching and how it can be used specifically in the area of the arts. I'm going to tell you a lot of things that I'm telling my students, and especially when it comes to the arts, there has been a lot of hype around AI art tools over the last, I would say, year. The end of last year, Midjourney became big, though it had been around for quite some time. So it's important in the arts that we are aware that this is about generative AI tools. AI tools have been used in the arts and computer programs for quite some time. 5 years, 10 years. As a support for different programs to basically make work steps easier, especially in areas like animation that are very, very work intense. Why is animation so work intense? Because every single frame has to be treated. It's a lot of optimization. And the AI basically is able to recognize different things and aspects. So students kind of used to work, or the entire art world used to work with AI tools for quite some time. Of course, now the entire generative AI tool has changed things a little bit. And so what I'm basically going to do is, it's a lot about demystifying it. So this is a video that I just found. Probably it might be a bit ruggly, but this is a typical animation created by AI. Very typical, probably most of you see that, would instantly see that this is an AI, and I'm going to shortly talk why that is. So the first thing, I think that's the most important one, especially in the arts, it's just a tool. It's not sentient. It's really important that we that students are aware of it, because as a matter of fact, a lot of students are quite scared, especially in the art, of AI tools. There's kind of this myth that this replacement theory, right? The fear of being replaced by this machine. And so the first thing I'm doing in my classes, I think that's very important, and this for me is really the way to approach students. I demystify the technology as such. So again, this is just for me sharing, but for me, I noticed over the last year that this are certain things that really help in demystifying this technology. So first, I try to introduce the students to the very basic of generative AI technology. This being an art school, not a computer science school, not a school for not the mathematics division of NTU. This takes some time, but it's not that complicated to actually introduce the very basic concepts. People can, basically build themselves very, very easy large language model, or in this case, like small language models. And these are the two things I basically introduced. These are LLMs, which means large language model. We know them as like Google Bard, of course, ChatGPT, and then the text-to-image systems. Text-to-image systems, there's a boom in different tools. Basically every week a new tool gets released. So in order to keep it simple at this presentation, I'm going to talk mainly about Midjourney, because it's kind of the most famous tool. And I only can recommend you getting on it and playing around with it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, this is another thing, like just encourage students to play, kind of forcing them to install these things. Another thing that I noticed, and that really helps for me, is like the avoiding of anthropomorphizing the tool, because it's just a tool. So I really take care not to say that the AI draws something, not to say that the AI writes something. It does not. What the AI does is it combines and processes already existing data. The AI does not have good ideas. I think we talk about like the writing. There's no actual funny ideas. It's already existing data that gets processed. And I think the most important part about AI, especially when it comes down to pictures, is that the students are aware that Midjourney and all the others, these tools do not generate pictures from scratch. They always need the internet. They draw their data from the internet. So whenever you put a text prompt in, and this goes for like text tools and for picture tools as well, it's never prompt to image or text. It's always prompt, and then you send the prompt in the internet. The AI kind of collects the data in the internet, and then with the data collected in the internet, it gives you an outcome. And that's really important that the students understand that. For me, that's like the most important thing, that they are aware that this is basically just a catalyst for things that are around in the internet. Another thing, and this kind of taps back to the very first point, the concept of stochastic parrot. Stochastic parrot, famous quote from the paper from the Google AI ethics team, basically describing how, in this case, it was a bit about large language models, but it goes the same for the text-to-image models. Again, it kind of parrots what's already there in a stochastic manner. Stochastic meaning in a probability, right? So I think it's important that students, even in the arts, understand a certain aspect of how stochastic works. And it makes sense to warm that up from the secondary school. I don't know if Singapore, they told me that they don't really do a lot of stochastic, but they have at least a rough idea about it. Now, when we talk about AI in the visual things, there's of course the huge thing about copyright issues, and that's something I always warn them about. And there are two things about copyright issues. The first one, of course, is because AI only taps into the internet, is the danger of copyright violation. This is very important. And there are a lot of lawsuits going on about that right now. So we have to follow that closely. That's the only recommendation I can give, because the decision is not done. And also when it comes down to law, it's country specific. But if I type in Mickey Mouse standing on the NTU campus, I'm not sure we all would recognize NTU campus, but we certainly do recognize Mickey Mouse. And I put this in particular because Disney being famously very touchy about their copyright. So this is a big issue when I talk to students, that they must be aware about the copyright issues, especially if they want to publish work. And here comes the other big thing about publishing work. Copyright cannot be granted to AI-generated work. A lot of students are not aware of that, but it's super important. Sorry. The reason why that is rather funny. Just to go there, this is about this kind of monkey. A lot of you will know, in 2011, a monkey took a photo of itself, and basically a copyright issue that kind of set the precedent that because the monkey took the picture, this picture cannot be copyrighted because only humans can be granted copyright. And it's bizarre, I know, but therefore, at least in the US law, anything, if someone or something creates a piece of art and that is not a human, there can be no copyright on it. So that's very important for students when they do work, especially, which at ADM is not that unusual. They want to commercialize it later on. They want to show it on festivals, that no copyright can be granted to AI-generated work. So, having said this, I'm already 5 minutes in, or more. So why would I use generative AI in the arts? Where are potential areas that I can use specifically with students? So I kind of have figured out where I like to use it. And the first one is concept. In the arts, when we do a movie, we kind of have before we start designing things, we basically just try to figure out where we want to go. Now, art never happens in a vacuum. Nobody really creates something entirely new from scratch. People always reference things as artists. That's kind of the same thing that, as we said, AI does to a certain degree. And until a year ago, when we were talking about mood boards is basically when you kind of, so what's the mood the movie should have? Students would browse the internet and pick from Google picture search, pick different pictures and put them together in a mood board and tell us, okay, a little bit of here, a little bit of that. That's how I want my movie, how I want my picture to look. And for this mood boarding, the conceptual part, AI is really a great tool just for sketching, just to get a rough idea by doing the proper prompts. I'm shortly going to talk about prompting in the arts just shortly. Then there are, of course, the economical aspects. A lot of students sometimes, even in the arts, would be surprised, are not necessarily able in certain aspects of the arts. So it really kind of democratizes this kind of creation of pictures. And there are great directors who actually are not really good at drawing. AI gives them the possibility, if they can work with language, to kind of like get the first ideas of pictures out there. And there, of course, is the other thing in the arts, important, especially interactive, is code writing. AI, I'm not sure a lot of you are aware, but AI writes really good code. ChatGPT, for example, if you want to Python, if you want Arduino for small robots, AI does a great job. I'm going to shortly to talk about how to do that. And there's a certain amount of inspiration with AI as well. I'm going to show you how basically you can send the AI somewhat dreaming. This taps back into the very, very first beginnings of AI generative art that are almost 10 years ago, like Google Dream, basically where AI kind of like picks random pictures and combines them in one picture. Now, if we use AI picture tools, and the ones of you who have used it, be it DALL-E or be it Midjourney. For me, I like to call it the slot machine, because you kind of like throw words in and you don't even know what's coming out. So how do we control the slot machine? So this is, if I type in slot machine, this is what Wikipedia gives me, the picture. Now, if I type slot machine into DALL-E, these are the pictures I'm getting out there. And you can see this is just a slot machine. This is just the prompt slot machine. And here, these are kind of the things you're getting out, and it doesn't end here. These are all the same kind of. There's a very particular aesthetic to it. Then, of course, there's a lot of content bias. Students must be aware of that. Now, again, coming back, it's never prompt image, it's prompt internet image. So if I type in a person sitting in front of a slot machine, the internet gives me this. Of course, in here, there's probably, this is just an assumption of mine, a lot of like awareness about gambling. So you instantly have like these sad pictures. So this, I didn't say like sad person in front of a machine. It's just a person sitting in front of a slot machine. Instantly, the pictures become sad. So tomorrow there will be a course, I think it's by my good friend Andrew Prahl, who will give the on prompting. So there will be a more, he will go into detail about that. But there's a certain amount what I like to teach about prompt engineering. And for me, these are really like the points that I figured out are important. How to prompt engineer, these are the things you have to introduce. So let's say you want to get a visualistic picture of a young man sitting in a field on a slot machine. If you take that prompt, then it really makes sense to teach the students to be as precise as possible. Again, coming back to bias, it's interesting. If you look at the person, they are completely white. All of them, 8 pictures, kind of always the same looking person. So if you randomize the entire thing, and that's why I'm saying, when I'm coming back to like this inspiration thing, there are certain, when you prompt engineer, you can code a bit. That's here, if you see, like there's a chaos 50. The chaos index goes from 1 to 99, I believe. So basically, all of a sudden, you get actually quite more realistic pictures, and also the outcomes become a bit more diverse. Here's an increase of chaos. And I think what I wanted to point out here, and this is from a course, here it really gets interesting about the dreaming thing. When you look at the top left one, where all of a sudden you get this kind of interesting aspect that of a European church window and kind of the similarity to a slot machine. So these are the things where I really think this is an interesting parallel here that personally I wouldn't have thought about myself, but the AI kind of like gave me this idea. So this really, what I'm saying, can help with inspiration. And of course, very interesting as well, if we come back to that part, if we put in the chaos, all of a sudden we get non-white people here as well, which I think is quite interesting. Okay, so how to train prompting? Most important definitely is language skills, which is a bit unusual for, not unusual, but new for the arts. We kind of like, we're always taught that, you know, we can express ourselves without language. That will change. With this tool, we need the language. It's super important to teach media competency. They must understand how the internet works, what is the bias, how are these biases, you know, how can I circumvent them? Same goes for references. AI is not good with creating entirely new things, but it's very good with like coming back to references. And super important, you have to teach students in order to prompt properly, they must be able to deconstruct in the first place. Basically, they have to be able to describe a picture and then deconstruct it. And then once they have mastered the skill, they can rebuild. Especially add up the deconstructed items. That is very important for coding, I noticed. If I want to have a rather complex code, if I just type in the entire picture into ChatGPT, the code won't work. But if I kind of like look at the idea that I have for the interactive aspect, and I kind of deconstruct it, and I start with a very basic one. Let's say I want a certain light LED that blinks in a certain way as a reaction. I really start, make the LED light blue. I write that code, I test that code. Then I go for the text. Make the LED light blue blinking. I write that code, I test that code. Make the LED blink in a blue light when somebody enters the room. I test it, and so on and so on. The building up piece by piece is really helpful. That also works with pictures. Okay, and that pretty much concludes my presentation. Again, it's a very short one, and it's work in progress. We're trying at ADM to implement it in a bit of a bigger scale, but I'd say it's a long way, but it's just very exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Now, we're going to have maybe 1 minute or so for a quick question, perhaps, from anyone who would like to ask. Perhaps just pick up your mic. Okay, well, that seems like a lot. Maybe I can ask. That seems like a lot of work to get your students to learn all that stuff. What was the process like?
The process is, I have luckily a rather flexible course. So basically from last year on, I just introduced an entire lecture for, as I mentioned, how do LLM work. And yeah, basically it was a lot of theory. And then that's, I think, the main thing, by demystifying. This is what I noticed in the first semester. They were quite reluctant. There was even like somewhat like of a political stance on it, which I kind of liked, but it was surprising to me nevertheless, as in like, you know, basically big tech is threatening us as an artist. So we were kind of like, no, we're not doing that. And by demystifying that, and by actually like telling students that it's not hocus pocus, it's not magic, it's just a tool, and by comparing it to other tools, by actually like making students realize that they have been using AI all along, this is just a different flavor of AI, that really helped kind of like got them playing. And once they start playing, yeah, it really worked. And again, the deconstructing, this kind of part that I actually, another tip, which is really a nice exercise I noticed, is to take an already existing picture, photograph, show it to the students, and then tell them, rebuild that in AI. Basically giving them a picture and then asking them, please, now here's your here's Midjourney, rebuild that picture that I just showed you. Which of course will never like yield the very same outcome. But it's interesting like how close, but also how far the outcomes were from this picture. And that really helped for them to deconstruct pictures.
Do you notice any improvements to their work? Yeah.
After that exercise, the deconstructing exercise, where I basically showed them a picture and then told them to rebuild it, that changed a lot. And I was learning as well, right? Then it was interesting because I had one student actually from social science, and they did great. I assume because they are a bit more used to working with language. So that was quite an eye-opener for me. And that's also what realized me that we really have to put up our game in the arts when it comes down to language skills and teaching that.
Thank you. Now, we do have one more question in the chat. Perhaps you could respond to that while we move on to the next speaker, if that's possible. That question is on copyright issues. Okay, and it's in the chat.
It's in the chat. Let me.
It's in the chat. Yeah.
The chat.
Okay. So meanwhile, I would like to move on to introduce our next speaker. Okay. And make sure that we can all see my slides this time. Right. So our next speaker is Dr. So Dr. Teo Shiling from NIE, and her title, her presentation is titled, "The AI has a warmer tone of voice than I have. Developing students' language and communication skills with GAI." Let's welcome Dr. Teo.
Thank you, Sophia. All right. So thank you for attending the sharing sessions. I do know that this is just a short sharing session of what we have done in our different classes. So I am just sharing mine, nothing theoretical or heavy about that. But hopefully the sharing is helpful for you to think about how we can work with GAI and help our students improve in their language skills. So for this particular sharing that I have, it's based off a communication skills class that I run with the PGDE students in NIE. So just a brief context about the program. It's the Postgraduate Diploma in Education program offered by NIE to students who already have gotten their degree elsewhere. So for those who enter PGDE program, what happens is we do get a wide range of age groups. So I do see students between their early 20s to 30s, right? Because they could be fresh graduates, they could have come from a different career. And therefore, generally, the profile of students that I have in the communication skills class are quite diverse in terms of their backgrounds, teaching specializations, and language abilities. So, one of the, for instance, I suppose the weaker students, right, for the classes would be those who have a weaker command of the English language. Some might be unfamiliar with communication practices, like, for example, what the carbon copy, the CC field in the email is supposed to do and how to use it. I do have those students in the class. And of course, there will be those who are very familiar with all kinds of communication practices because they previously work in communication or in media or in advertising. So that's the kind of diversity that I do face. However, this particular communication skills for teachers class is compulsory for everyone to take. And it's basically to equip them with the practical skills that's necessary for oral and written communication in their capacity as future educators. So in that sense, we do quite a bit of discussion and role plays and practices in terms of some authentic scenarios that they might face in the future when they are teachers. So I think one of the main things that I was considering when I started, when ChatGPT burst into the scene and everybody was, wondering, right, how that might affect academic writing and what's going to happen with the assignments. For myself, at the time, I was still thinking, well, for communication skills, I don't think, because it's a soft skill, I don't think the AI would be able to do such a fantastic job at what would require some nuances in managing of relationships. However, when I was playing around with the different GAI myself, I was pleasantly surprised by the results of what they can produce. And therefore, I thought it would be interesting to introduce this to my students. One of the key thinking or consideration behind this is the knowledge that as teachers, sometimes we have 101 things to manage, and sometimes sitting down to really craft an email properly, for instance, might be challenging due to, well, all the different things that we have to take care of and the time constraints. So I actually had students try out the different GAI tools to see its usefulness and to actually evaluate it, right, for this particular communication skills course. So before I jump into some examples, I'll just perhaps give you a broad idea of the focus for the particular lesson that I planned with the students. So in terms of the course objectives, right, one of the key ideas with communication skills is the idea of purpose, audience, and context when we are communicating. So what exactly is the purpose? Who are we talking to? And under what context, right? Because all of these influence our word choices or the way that we phrase certain things. And all of this, especially in the written form, affects the interpretation of tone, which is quite subjective. Yeah. And of course, some persuasive techniques that might be needed, that they might need to employ in the context of workplace communication as well. So one of the little activities that I just start my students off to sensitize them, because not all of them come from language backgrounds. One of the things that a short activity that I do would be, for instance, just to ask them to list, right, in one sentence or one question, how would you communicate to parents that they should attend the parent-teacher meeting? So these were all options that were given by students. And you can see that there are those where the tone is very strong, right? And it might sound demanding or commanding, like you must attend the PTM, to something that in this particular context might be a bit inappropriate, but it sounds like an advertisement. Want to find out more about your child's progress? Come for the PTM, right? And so I think we had a good laugh at this, and just to discuss, right, the implications of how just phrasing that same message in different ways would bring about different tones and different nuances to the ideas that we're trying to express. And so after I've gone through that, I had them incorporate GAI for the crafting of an email based on a scenario. So what happens is I actually gave them the scenario. They tried their hands at crafting an email first on their own, and then to prompt the AI to produce its version of the email. And so I have students who actually tried out ChatGPT, Nova, and Google's Bard, so a range, just to see how it comes out. And then they were supposed to reflect and, compare their writing against that of what's generated by the AI, and what will be some of the strengths and weaknesses in terms of their writing. And then, of course, then we shared how they might find GAI useful or not in terms of communication. So just to give you the background of the couple of scenarios that I did. So one of them would be to address an upset and angry parent, right, who expressed the displeasure that their child is, again, in the same form class as a well-known bully, right, who has a history of bullying their child. And so that's one particular email to be written. And the other one is actually to imagine that they are part of a event organizing committee for the school. and to request the principal's approval for a proposed guest of honor for that particular event. So two different audience, two different kind of situations, right? And I'll just show you a few examples of what AI has generated. So this is the first one that was generated by ChatGPT to address the first issue on bullying. I'll just give you a little time to read through the generated text before I continue. Okay, so when the students got this particular email, right, many of them expressed surprise, as well as they were very impressed. And this is when actually a lot of the students mentioned, wow, the AI sounded more human than I do, right? In their own writing, what happened is many of them focused on the issue of trying to resolve whether they could change the child's classroom, right? So that they can separate Dinesh from Tim, right? So the best that they had in terms of expressing empathy is, I'm sorry to hear that your child is once again with the class bully, right? And I think that was the only, for many of the students who attempted this was probably the only empathetic sentence that they have included. So many of them, when they saw this generated text, they said, wow, the AI sounded so empathetic, sounded so human and so warm. Like if they were the mother, they would feel that, wow, you know, my distress, right, is addressed. As compared to their own writing, which was very task-focused. So this was one of the examples. I'll just show you a couple of other examples by ChatGPT and BART in relation to the second scenario. So this is the event organizing committee. So this is by ChatGPT, and you would see I have reduced it a little bit, and just to show you the snippets to give you an overall idea of what it came up with. And I just want to draw your attention. So this Mrs. Chi is the principal. And they're supposed to seek for approval, right, for the guest of honor. And so some of the bolded and underlined words that I have included are things that my students have picked out to say that, well, it's questionable whether if this is appropriate or not, right? So to tell the principal, I am pleased to inform you that we have decided on this, does not match the purpose that was stated in the prompt, right? And this one is by BART, which is a little bit lengthier. And so again, the students were discussing whether if with the principal whom you see all the time, would an opening like, I hope this email finds you in good health, be appropriate, and whether if using words like esteemed, right, renowned, and to perfection is a little too, well, flowery in terms of the language, right? So then they started thinking about our Singapore-specific cultural contexts, and of course, in the context of speaking to a principal who assigned or who assigned them the duty of being in this organizing committee, whether if saying something like, as you may recall, the idea for this gala event was initiated by you, and it is our privilege to take on the responsibility of organizing it. And so then there was, again, a good discussion as to whether if this is appropriate to be included or not. Yeah. And so in terms of the sort of like overall reflections that students gained from the lesson or the little assignment that we did. So in terms of the strengths of AI, so of course, it's sounding more human, right? Having brought up points or perspectives that they didn't think of, right? And I thought what was interesting is they said that having the AI generate the text actually freed up their mental load to focus on whether if the content is accurate and whether the tone is appropriate for the particular audience and circumstance. And I thought that last point in particular was quite fascinating, because they said that having the AI generate a first draft actually brought distance between themselves and what has been written. And because of that, they said that as teachers, if they are in an emotionally charged situation where perhaps their own personal feelings are involved, having the AI generate this first draft is helpful to aid them in terms of retaining objectivity in the particular situation and to be able to write something that is more neutral and address the situation better. Yeah, and the second part is it actually allowed them to reflect and critique more easily as to what are the different areas for improvement, because it's no longer about themselves, but about the writing itself. And therefore, it was easier for them to critique and look at what might be improved. And in terms of the limitations of AI, they noted, interestingly, that there were different uses of the varieties of English, whether if it's British or American spelling conventions. And so they were saying that to be aware, if in the school, British English is preferred in terms of the spelling convention, that they might actually have to make some edits because a few of the AI tend to use American spelling conventions, for instance. And there are, of course, comments that the texts are unnecessarily verbose, and there are also those that, the point forms might not be taken well as well. So again, culture-specific issues that needs to be addressed. And they also mentioned that some of the points that was brought up by the AI are very generic or broad, so it's not necessarily context-specific. So, for instance, the seeking of approval from the principal for the guest of honor, right? Quite a few of the AI generated reasons as to why the guest of honor should be included. However, they are very generic in terms of, we can promote awareness of this particular field. And it's not necessarily school specific. And so, interestingly, this actually got students thinking that the school's vision, mission, as well as values could have been brought in to actually match more closely in terms of how we can persuade the principal to agree to the invitation of a particular person as guest of honor. And so this got them thinking about their school context. Right. And of course, for the AI, sometimes maybe the lack of background knowledge as to what has transpired prior to the communication might have led to an unnecessarily long email. And of course, they noted that sometimes maybe the AI itself might not understand the relationship. So there are those who noted that some of their generated text thank the school's principal for continual support in helping the school achieve success. And many of them were saying that that's inappropriate, right? Because, that's the job of the school's principal. So it's odd to thank the principal for that. And of course, then taking a step back, they also noted that the generated text is only as good as the prompt given to the AI. So, just to quickly round up, many of them would say that they wouldn't use it for a final text, for a final piece of writing. They said that it's good for ideas, right? As well as for first draft, especially with challenging or sensitive situations. And interestingly, they weigh the pros and cons, right, in terms of the time taken to actually craft a good prompt versus the time to just simply sit down and write that piece of communication. So they were saying that, well, it might be good to seek alternative perspectives through the use of GAI, just to help them improve, but it will never be taken as the final piece of writing. And they recognize that need to edit and personalize to tailor for their own context and culture, specific to whether they're schools or to Singapore. And this was very interesting, right? This last point, because we often, in terms of writing, we always talk about personal voice, and how your voice comes through writing. So without me actually talking about this, the students themselves reflected on how, the AI itself, the way it has written, that doesn't sound like me, right? And my personal voice is not coming through that writing. And so people who know me, especially my colleagues, would find that there's a disconnection between who I am as a person, how I communicate usually, versus a piece of writing that's generated by the AI. And so because of this, many of them did also say that because of this, it might serve as a good first draft, but they will need to edit and change it, revise it, so that their own personal voice comes through. So for instance, some of them were saying that, typically I myself wouldn't start an email by, I hope this email finds you well, because they would start in a different way. And so I thought that having the AI, having them explore the AI, their text, and having seen some examples, right, it actually gives them a greater sense of what's comfortable for them, what their voice is when it comes to writing. Yeah. So, well, this is basically my last slide. Just to sort of, I suppose, give a overview or summary of what might be helpful when including GAI for communication practices. So I thought the first point, providing safety for the students, right? Psychological safety, because then the critique is not face-threatening for some of them. And they also realize that it's not about the command of your language, right? But it's about how you put across your points in communication. And then because of this safety, I thought it actually led to deeper insights. Students were a bit, more comfortable in terms of sharing, their awareness of context and culture, their own personal voice. And all of this, you can see that it's in response to that developing awareness and sensitivity to the way that certain points are phrased and the kind of word choices that were used. Yep. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We don't have questions in the chat, but we do have a response. Oh, actually, we do have a question. So the first response was from Ricci. And she said the text didn't address the bully question, though. I think that referred to the one that sounded more like it had more empathy, right? And then there's another one from Ian. He says, these days nobody trusts anyone that says, I understand how you feel, because we know they do not actually care. Is that not the same as will happen with AI? Are there any studies to show how people react to machine-generated empathy? That's a good question. Do you have any response to that?
Right. Any studies that I'm not too sure. I haven't come across any, right? Because perhaps it's still quite new. And I don't know whether if anyone's studying this machine-generated empathy. I mean, it'll be very interesting to find out. Yeah. Thanks for that question. Yeah. And in terms of the other comment, that it's an in-progress response, definitely, right? Something that we always tell our students in terms of workplace communication is that it's never a once-off affair. It has to be done in progress. It's always in progress. And so as a teacher, we have to be mindful that there are certain things or certain decisions that were made that we are not privy of, and therefore we need to actually find out first before we can actually respond, right? So that things do not, there are no miscommunication and misunderstandings happening to that. So it's definitely an in-progress response. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Shilling. We can continue this discussion on the chat as we did before. And now I would like to move on to our third segment, which is our third presentation will be delivered by both Dr. Angela Fraterola and Dr. Joanne Chia. Maybe I don't need to do this anymore. So their topic will be on the evolving role of GenAI in an academic writing course taken by all NTU undergraduates. Let's welcome them.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's see. Okay, now I can share. Okay. Not at the start. 1 second. Okay, great. Thank you, Sophia, and thank you to CTLP for having us, inviting us to present today to share some of our work. And thank you to everybody else for showing up, for coming today to listen to us. It'd be great to hear your feedback when we're done. So I think a lot of what we're going to say actually meshes really nicely with what Bernard and Shilling have been saying as well. The idea that, to try to let students know that GAI is a tool, but it's not really going to give you those really interesting, exciting ideas, because it really is just kind of working with the existing data out there. I think Bernard said that. And then also, as Shilling was saying, the sort of need for students and for writers to let their personal voice shine through, right? So this is something we've been trying to explain to students as well. So just to give you some context, this project came out of a realization that Joanne sort of came to, but we all sort of were thinking about as well, for CC 0001, which is Inquiry and Communication in an Interdisciplinary World. This is part of the new ICC curriculum, not so new anymore. And it's basically the general writing class that almost, all 6,000 NTU students take every academic year. We offer 180 classes. We have about 60 teachers. It's a huge operation. But it's a fun course, and basically students get to pick a place in Singapore, a community in Singapore, or their own writing practices. And they're asked to observe it really closely, to get lots of field notes, to start to analyze those notes for patterns or interesting details, to come up with their own question from that, and not like an answerable kind of social science kind of question or a scientific question, but more like a conceptual question, something that's just going to get them thinking. They do a lot of non-graded, scaffolded writing assignments that teachers read and give a little bit of feedback to kind of push students a little further and give them gentle nudges or say, yeah, this is interesting, keep thinking about it. So we call these blogs because they're not, supposed to be formal writing. Part of the goal for this course is to give students the experience of writing as a tool for thinking. So meaning that, through the process of actually just putting fingers on the keyboard, pen to paper, through the actual writing process, that they're going to discover, stumble upon, figure things out about their topic. And they pick that one topic and they work with it throughout the entire semester, and each assignment sort of builds and gets bigger and bigger. They kind of accumulate all the different parts. After they get their question, they find 2 sources that they deeply engage with, and they try to synthesize the sources. And then what's extra important is that they contribute their own voice to the conversation between the sources, to develop a sort of a fresh insight on their topic. Something, we call it an op-ed, is the final piece of writing. It's not really an op-ed in the traditional sense. It's more like a exploratory, argumentative essay. But the idea is to have your reader read your final piece of writing at the end of the course, have your classmates read it, they present on their topics, and have your your reader, your audience go like, oh, I never thought of Hawker Centers in that way before, right? Which is difficult because a lot's already been written on these different aspects of Singapore. So it's exciting to see the students kind of struggle to come up with a new perspective, a new way of looking at these different places, communities, or their own writing. Yeah, so that's sort of the background. And because all students from all over Singapore take this, or all over NTU take this class, we have a real wide range of writing abilities. And Joanne, who is my colleague and the main PI for this grant, who's going to talk later about the specifics of the app that we developed, she basically was thinking that it'd be nice to have an app that could help students through the writing process, especially students who, you know, struggle a bit, who think, oh, I'm not a writer. And, you know, the course is already designed to kind of do everything step by step and scaffold everything. It really guides students through, but there's still like those gaps, moments where it would be nice if a teacher or someone could be there to help them a bit more and give them more feedback, where, you know, students could maybe input their writing into an app and then be asked to either like evaluate their own writing with prompts, or perhaps even have GenAI kind of give some not evaluating feedback, but more kind of well, have you considered this, or you might look at that, or that sort of thing. So anyway, the team is Joanne's our PI, and then me and Lisa from ADM are also the co-PIs. And then we have an amazing undergrad research team. Yajat, who's from computer science, did all of the programming, created our app for us. And then Azra and Alicia, who are from ADM, did all the graphic design with Lisa's coaching and help. And then Xunming has helped with logistics. We're going to be interviewing and surveying all the students who have used the app. I'll talk in a minute about the pilot run. But yeah, basically the idea was to create this app that would help students through the writing process for CC 0001. And that would use GenAI, but in a way that was sort of more controlled. So, and Joanne will show you this. So we have, you know, the students will see one sort of question like, would you like some feedback on, you know, how if there's details that your descriptive writing could possibly expand on. And then, but we have back-end prompts that kind of more control the sort of responses that the students would get from the GenAI. And our goal of that really is to make sure that there's never a moment when the GenAI is either really like assessing the student's writing in the way that a teacher would, because we don't want to create conflicts between a teacher assessment and what the app told them. And then also we don't want to have moments where the app is actually providing the writing for the students, because really what is most important, like I said before, is that students have this experience of kind of using writing as a tool for thinking. So, you know, they're learning to value that writing can be a helpful tool to get them to stumble upon new ideas and figure things out. And in the app, our little AI guy, you'll see him when Joanne talks, is a little light bulb. He's super cute, called Nudgy. So, I mean, and just to kind of give you some background, right now, our AI policy for CC 111, and this is the first time we put this in effect, so it might get revised, we don't know. But basically, students can use AI for brainstorming purposes to sort of, you know, try to figure out different perspectives on their topic or brainstorm on ideas. And if they do this, we ask that they, along with their final paper, give us the input and output for whatever, like if it's ChatGPT, to kind of print out everything, all the back and forth, so the teacher can look at it and kind of see how it was used. And then that students might also use it for editing. And for that, we ask that they upload a draft pre-editing, pre-GenAI editing, and then post. So again, we can kind of just see, we just want to be able to trace the students' idea development and make sure that the ideas are really coming from the students. In general, so far, there has not actually been a lot of students taking us up on these two possible ways to use AI for their assignments. I think there's a real terror of those Turnitin scores, which I don't necessarily find very reliable, but the students are still very afraid of them. So they, I think, just avoid it as much as possible. And then also, we surveyed about 200 students or so before we developed the app to get a better sense of student needs. And students repeatedly said that they really, they didn't want ChatGPT taking over their writing for them because they really valued their own voice as writers. They didn't want that being taken over. So that was nice to hear. And it seems like it has kept students away from it, perhaps. And it's also this sort of the scaffolding aspect of the course sort of deters, I think, AI usage, just because everything builds on this lived experience of going and observing a community or going to an actual place and sitting there and seeing what you see. So, we in class will often bring in a ChatGPT description of Chinatown and say, this is what you're not supposed to do. This is very generic, right? There's no sense that someone really had a lived experience, that someone sat there for an hour and observed and saw something interesting that sparked their curiosity, that got them thinking, that got them asking questions. So in class, we kind of work to show sort of the more generic aspects of the AI writing and kind of use that to contrast past student examples that are, that you can really tell are immersed in a lived experience more. So yeah, that's our policy. And then this was our pilot run we just did this semester with the app. We have about 70 students. They're all in Joanne's class using the app. And then once the semester is done now, so what our next movement will be is to survey and interview those students, get a sense of what they felt about the app, how it helped them, what they wished might be different about it. And then I'm also really looking forward to looking at their engagement with the AI, what they asked it, or well, it's kind of controlled what they can ask, but what output they got from it and how that might have shaped their assignment, their writing and their argument as they move forward through the course. So that's what we'll be looking at. So let me pass it to Joanne, and she will take you through some of the pages of the app.
Thanks, Angela.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I have never spoken in front of 100 people before, I think. So please forgive me if I go a bit fast. All right. So we thought you might like a quick look at the Waai web app, beginning with the landing page containing icons associated with the app. So right in the middle, you will see the Nudgy that was mentioned earlier. Okay, our in-house chatbot based on GPT 3.5 that we will focus on today. Also found the landing page, if you scroll all the way down, is the design thinking user journey map. Okay, which gives users a quick glance at how we use GenAI to help support and imitate an iterative process of brainstorming, beginning with empathizing with the observations. So I noticed empathy came up earlier as well. Okay, the main objective of the app is to brainstorm as well as to test out students' ideas, especially concepts, by engaging with pre-designed prompts provided by the Nudgy that uses GenAI, as well as through other activities included in the app. The hamburger side panel menu shows how the app is structured according to the different scaffolded assignments for CC True 101. The roadmap is designed to help users travel to and fro in a non-linear process of creating an exploratory argument. The app accumulates whatever they input on each page, including chat histories with the Nudgy. So a system prompt for each page to tell the AI what is meant to be goes something like this. You are an experienced AI writing assistant. Your role is to provide feedback and insights on the given input. The input consists of the user data and a prompt to analyze this user data, and the user has requested evaluation, identification of gaps, and suggestions for improvement. You should thoroughly analyze the provided observations and provide thoughtful and constructive feedback based on the questions posed. Your responses should help the user gain a deeper understanding. Please provide comprehensive and informative answers to assist the user effectively. Do not be purely evaluative. Refer to the user in the second person. So data is saved at each stage, including the theme selected for the essay, their personal interests, as well as current inspirations, to ensure, as what Angela mentioned, their lived experience is being captured, as seen from these onboarding pages. So on each page of the app, where the nudgy lights up, okay, there is. GenAI will be available for brainstorming purposes. For instance, this is the Gather Insights page where students record down their insights from their field work. If you click the nudgy icon, you'll see that there's a new chat button. Right now, you can also see pin chats, which we thought might be useful for students to select which chats they want to keep for their brainstorming process. But it's not really in operation yet. Basically, you see all the chats being captured. When you click new chat, you'll be able to see the front end prompts that students will be able to select from. Okay, so you can see 4 possible prompts that students can select from this page. Likewise, the nudgy prompts are also available for the Introduce OPAP page, which is where students start to respond to their fieldwork observations. So here's an example of the feedback received by this user. Okay, so yeah, so at the same time,
am I on the right page?
thanks, Angela. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. So this is an example of the feedback received by this user. At the same time, behind the scenes, more detailed prompts or backend prompts would have been designed to further customize feedback for users. So they include the definitions of specific terms to scope the feedback given by the AI. Okay, right. Moving on to the research concepts page. So we're just giving you a sampler of some of the pages. So on this page, based on the user's research question, which is and the 9 might get filled in, the nudgy offers to recommend topics for the user to consider in the next stage of their research process. So you can see it's quite a long comment given by the AI, by the nudgy. Okay, all right. So we thought we will give you also an example of a different kind of brainstorming tool on the next page. Okay, so this is called, we use the Powers of 10 prompts, which is a popular brainstorming tool in design thinking. So there are actually about 10 prompts. So at this point, students have already chosen 2 main sources, research-based sources, and are encouraged to think outside the box to be able to derive a new perspective on the topic eventually. So that will be their own perspective. Okay, so we thought we'll give you an example also of how the AI would respond to the question, how would a Martian unfamiliar with Earth perceive my topic? Okay, all right, so you can so if you would look more carefully at these prompts, the feedback, you can actually see the AI encourages students to engage with their own ideas, rather than replacing their own thoughts or giving them generating a list of possible ideas related to a more general subject area. Okay, and finally, we're just getting started. We hope you could try out the app and give us your thoughts as well. You can access the app at askwaai.com. It's currently not mobile optimized, but we hope to do that in the next stage of app development once we've done the surveys and focus group discussions. So we hope to find a balance between offering students a platform to secure them in often uncertain process of iterative trial and error brainstorming, as well as open new directions or paths for them to explore in their unraveling essay. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have a few questions in the chat. One of them is, how do you measure the input and output from students when using your app? Any specific metrics or data points you are taking note of?
Sorry. Yes, I think there is, right, Joanne?
Yeah.
Joanne, I feel like knows the
Sorry, I was busy reading the chat. I couldn't really multitask. Oh, what's the question again? Sorry.
It's basically, I think that there's a couple questions there about like the metadata, like what, like are we able to, we are able to track like sort of what's pages students tend to really navigate more in and what they're doing on the app.
Which prompts is selected, whether or not they revisited the pages, we can also tell how long they spent on each page. We can tell that as well. Thanks to our web developer. Okay. What other questions? What kinds of learning? Okay. What are the parameters? Okay. So, I'm not sure if I'm answering this question, but basically, as we mentioned, the back-end prompting that's happening in the programming side. So we actually ensure that we are basically helping to ensure that the AI only gives feedback for brainstorming purposes, as opposed to paragraphs of text which students would receive if they say they wanted to summarize the source and they put it in ChatGPT. Then ChatGPT will just basically cover all areas of that particular subject area, or all subject areas covered by the particular source. So instead, we want them to want the AI to be able to narrow down the feedback, to engage directly with the students' ideas. Like, oh, I didn't know that was what I said, So they don't actually, there are certain times where it does sort of copy what you say, but there are moments when we tried out the app that they actually transform the idea a little bit, by putting it in a different way, using words that, hey, I didn't know I wrote that, So it's kind of like it's nice to have this. I mean, if it works, it's nice to have this kind of support, I suppose. Yeah.
Do you have any early data to show the effectiveness of this app yet? No. So are we looking at a year from now? Perhaps we'll invite you back, or?
Right. I mean, we're going to have it hopefully at the end of the semester, or, it is the end of the semester. So now we'll have all the students' assignments and all of their interactions with the app, and then hopefully be able to do the interviews, I would think, over January, maybe. I don't know if students, because I like to do it when it's still fresh in their heads. But someone was asking about, like, I think initially when we started this idea, we wanted to feed our course book into the AI and then kind of have it respond based on that. But I forget, why did that wasn't possible, right? We were told that was not.
The free response?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we were very aware that of what was happening in ChatGPT and everything, that there were dangers of plagiarism, and we just wanted to an environment where students actually will get the kind of which is a bit difficult to explain to students, to be honest. Okay, so they're like, yeah, I get free reign or GPT. So they do need some kind of evidence and proof on their end as well. They use it, and then if they see that ChatGPT is not as helpful and useful, especially in terms of, like, for instance, synthesizing sources. So that's where we hope that the app will come and help, fill the gap. So I think there was a comment that maybe we didn't have to create the app, is it? Right? It's just drag and drop. So what does that mean? I'm not sure. I haven't checked that out. In fact, we are just using GPT 3.5. So we might be exploring using GPT 4 or whatever later model that might be in the future version of the app.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela, Joanne. You can take the rest of the other questions on chat as well. And so now we are going to move on to our final presentation. Okay. So we have Ina.
Hello, everyone.
Professor Ina Conradi.
Yes.
Yes. And her presentation is titled AI in Art Studio, Creative Innovations in Media Art Practice. Let's welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My screen. Hello. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Great. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you Thank you, CTL. Thank you, Inspire, for the opportunity to present. The work that you are looking at is titled Theory of AI Evolution. And it's a speculative art piece by ADM student Xiang Ran. It contemplates the bizarre convergence of biological and mechanical evolution and carbon and silicon life forms. It poses the question, could AI be instrumental in determining the future of plant life? The artist initiates a dialogue on AI, the artistic innovation, and the future interplay between technology and the environment. So, my fascination and excitement about advancement in AI models, and particularly I'm talking about 2021 year, because AI in art has been around since early 60s, but what I will be talking about is mostly text-based and image-based recent models. They inspired me to design two interdisciplinary courses open to all of NTU. One is undergraduate explorations in AI-generated art, and one is postgraduate art in the age of creative machine. So here, what you're looking is a poster from the inaugural exhibition that took place, exhibition and workshop AI in art that took place in November 22nd, 2020. Last year, and it was collaborative effort between NTU Institute for Science and Technology for Humanity and their collab grant, part of my AI in Art Studio research with them. And also we had guest artists from Global Innovation Design program that we are having in exchange with Royal Imperial College. So what happened is we had not only exhibition, but we had also a prompt battle. And what basically happened, we had a competition where students used AI to turn text into image, which to me, as a 30+ year an artist, is totally fascinating phenomena. And this promptism was at that time early age of initiating creating art with words. And since then we used all types of ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E, Stability AI, Stable Diffusion, Confi UI, the latest tools. We are currently this semester collaborating with Gen 2 Runway, and Dream Studio, Luma AI, Waai, Dream Mix, Wonder Studio, Picalab, ton of them. And we are, why am I showing you this? Because I want to tell you how complex this process is. So I will go some time back into early artistic works that were done in ADM in 2020. My FIP student, Melody James, and I delved into Post-Human Narrativity with Cog in the Machine, a graphic novel inspired by Singapore's biotech advancements like cultured meat and genome editing. And we questioned humanity's role in the universe with insights from Associate Professor Peter Dodge on stem cells. So this is early example of OpenAI ChatGPT. And please enjoy a short clip of her demo video. What was the work all about? So this piece inspired another student following year. So Melody got an NTU Global Digital Art Prize for this work. It was really recognized well. It followed the work by another artist student, Alicia Nung, she created this memory misprint project, a creative exploration into fallible nature of the human memory, and also at that time used early Wikiguan clip and ChatGPT-2. So I will just play a video. So basically what she was trying to do is to invite viewers to consider the trustworthiness of their own memories within a constructed realm of fiction.
I went to an apple farm when I was little.
So you can see that these first examples are very typical of a Wikiguan clip a year ago, and since then things exploded in AI world. And I'm trying to tell my students not to fear nor dismiss AI in their process, and definitely consider it as a tool. Mastering AI in art is not a shortcut, but a skill that requires students to engage deeply with tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion. Through practice, they evolve from mere observers to creators, using AI to enhance, not replace their creativity. The aim is to use AI confidently and creatively without oversimplification. So I just skimmed through some process notebooks. This is example how complex these mood boards can become, from the initial research stages to documenting every prompt and every model that was used. So these are some preliminary, this is how we contemplate and use these tools by really meticulously documenting it. So this is another really cool project, Focused Trajectory of Singapore's Marine Ecosystem. So it's focusing around Singapore, and among escalating pollution, it delves into oceans ecological trials, emphasizing the critical demand for pollution control while conjecturing potential evolutionary mutations. So Jane is currently working on this project. This is her FIP. So this is a little bit about her pipeline. As you can see, we don't do you use one AI model, we weave like a weaving or a tapestry of various tools, from research and conceptualizing stage to research into topic to dialogue with ChatGPT to then researching species in existing Singapore's marine ecosystem, going through various tools. And at this stage, I think it would be wonderful to collaborate with peers in NTU, with writers, with anyone from social sciences or from Earth Observatory. We would love to collaborate with you and get ideas how to back up the research in our visuals. So here's a short snippet of her current progress. So these are various creatures that were created using Runway Gen 2, and based on the statistic data that she collected about these marine life species and how they will evolve in years to come. So because of the time restrictions, I won't pause on this too long. This is another really interesting project because it was done by student from computer science. So she never did any art, no art background, but she was, because computer science, she was able to download and install these complex AI models like ConfUI and Stable Diffusion. So the original title of her work, her name is Shreya Ramasubramanian, but the original title of her work is Hoarder House, and serves as a metaphor for the unconscious mind cluttered with remnants of past memories and traumas. So here's a little bit of her work. So we don't have time. A much more joyful piece, Pet Store, by Huitzi. Again, I will not play this one because we have very little time, but I want to highlight this particular project because in this project, we used AI as a visualization tool. The piece is called Box Body, as an interactive 3D performance that was actually live on a large LED wall and building in Singapore 10 Square. It was part of the Art Act Festival in 2023, last January. So what students did, they just used AI as a visualization. So this work was spectacular. This was done by two master students from Global Innovation Design program that were at ADM at the time. In my class, AI in a time of creative machines. So it gave them so much international recognition. They went on and exhibited in Piccadilly Lights and won. So this was just happened last month and they got a big award. So this was really exciting. A lot of other projects, we don't have time. We are running out of time. I just want to finish with a great validation of our efforts. We were invited by Ars Electronica Festival, one of the largest festival for art, technology, society, and they featured NTU ADM first time ever exhibition of our students alongside 56 international universities. And the theme of festival was coincidentally, Who Owns the Truth? And it was raising a lot of meaningful questions about ownership, machine learning, authority, sovereignty. And so for this inaugural exhibition, we structured our concept around butterfly's dream and the new aesthetic way in artistic practice. It was a metaphor that alludes to the latent qualities of machine learning. I will finish this presentation with, if you give me a chance, with a short video from that exhibition. So enjoy. that's it for me.
Thank you. That was fascinating. I loved all the images. Thank you so much.
Come to school. We have exhibition on our LED screen in school. For
Is it happening right now?
Yes, it's going to be their screenings till the end of the week.
To the end of the week.
Yeah, so you can see a bunch of work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ina.
Welcome.
Now, if you guys have any questions and you'd like to perhaps ask her, you could put it in the chat, or maybe, just right now. I think that we are probably speechless from how amazing those images are.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sorry, I went over time.
That's all right. So I want to thank everybody for being here, each and every one of you. Truly appreciate you being here. And also a big special thank you to all of the presenters and speakers. If you would like to, if you have a moment to spare, we have a feedback form for you to fill out. If you could kindly give us some feedback. All right, so there it is. And I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful rest of the afternoon. All right, if you'd like to stay back and ask Prof. Ina questions, you're welcome to. Ina, do you have any?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for opportunity.
Thank you.